probably texted you. But I think we started at 6:30 last time. And we started at 6, so I'm not sure what would be.
This is 6.
This one's 6, yeah, I think so. But I wasn't sure because I was thinking 6:30 and then luckily I pulled it up and I think it was about 6 o'clock, so.
I gotta lock that down a little more.
Well, I'd like to welcome everybody out to the work meeting for November 13th, 2025. I'd like to welcome David, Deputy Chief, coming here to help us out and we can discuss some things on there. Appreciate his time coming out. So I guess we'll dive right into that discussion and kind of discuss any items that the commission has with the flag lots that they would want to address, or if you have something prepared, Malcolm, that would be.
Yeah, I mean, prepared. Just in our last time we met, you guys mentioned it'd be good to hear from Public Works, so we'll get Jared here eventually. Jared, it's harder to get them to, but should be one, but Jared's a little busy, but worst case, from Jared and me, we were thinking we could set a work meeting even and invite a couple people, but in the interim, we just get the fire perspective on it. There's obviously a lot of considerations from, the stem road and proximity to a fire hydrant and the surface and access, maintenance and removal, things like that, and safety. So I finish on what you're going from. So yeah, let's just open it up and you got anything you wanted to start out and then hit the question. We shouldn't take a ton of your time, really.
No, that's fine. I've got information, but I'd probably rather just have you guys ask her what your concerns are, and then I can probably just fill in anything you would like to know, hopefully. So
I guess my main thing is, what are you looking when we don't have a flag lot ordinance, but as you go into other cities and we have to encounter these, what are, the problems that you see that you wish were different versus things that work well from a fire perspective?
no, that's a great question. So I can just start off with some information and then we can go from there. I'll let you guys ask questions. So the fire code is the minimum standard that, assuming that an area, a city, whatever, doesn't have any, that we at least have the IFC, the fire code, that we can fall back on. So some of the requirements that they have would be, we adopt the appendices. It says in chapter 5 that you can go up to 600 foot on the hydrant. Really, the appendices is 500 feet. If somebody was somewhere in between, well, we give a little bit of latitude. Try to be reasonable with them. If it's really far, that's what I'm going to tell them. You guys need to bring a paper down. Yeah, but if it's close, we give them the benefit of the doubt.
You do,
Try to
you do that on single lot subdivisions too.
single ones. Yeah. Try to help as much as I can, but if they get far away, I've got to put one in. I know it's expensive, but I got to measure that, protect their family. That's the hose lace. Perfect question. Exactly. Is how's the engine, the hose comes off the back of the engine. And as the engine drives to the house.
So it has to be able to drive.
Correct. It's not as the bird flies, it's as the hose loaders. Good question. So thank you. And then we want 20-foot wide, as close as we can to 20 feet wide going down. They can call it a driveway, but the reality is in the flag lot, this part of the driveway, and again, I don't care what they call it, but it's for us, it's the fire access road. And when they get into their yard and right in here, that's really the driveway. But I mean, if they call it a driveway, that's fine. But we want that 20 feet and we really want a maintainable surface. Now, in the day, we used to use road base, but it's failing everywhere. And so we've kind of gone a little bit more to where at least we're using the roto mill. You guys are, yeah, you guys sound like you guys are familiar with that. So it's almost like asphalt. So we want them to be able to scrape snow. We want the engines to be able to get in. I don't want a mud pit. I don't want stuff growing through it, stuff like that. So we're trying to get in that direction. It might make some people mad because in the past they've been able just to compact road base. And I'll be honest with you, the one thing that I'll say, I always give you guys kudos for this. Hooper's one of the few cities that'll actually core and test it and make sure we have the compaction to support the 75,000 pounds. But it has to support 75,000 pounds. And so that really is, I do appreciate that. And Jared, I think does a great job of making sure that's done right for me. Typically on a fire lane, if there is a hydrant brought down, it's supposed to be 26 feet wide. Again, this is something where we can in code do a cutout and put the hydrant in there and leave it at 20. So that we're not burdening the homeowner with a 26-foot wide road. I mean, if he'll give it to us, great. But if he's like, can I just do 20 and do a cutout? Yes. The reason that they usually go to 26 is just so there's room for the hose and then engines to pass. But I try to get them to kick the hose off to save the now we're talking a single family lot. You know, if it gets to start to be multiple, then it has to start following more of that 26 at least. So
my road is out of spec. So I already got 21 feet.
well, it's nice though, because at least we can pass.
Yeah.
And so, but yes, flag lots are common. I mean, there's actually verbiage in the code for flag lots.
In your code or in?
In the IFC, correct, just in the, and when I'm quoting that, it's just the IFC. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't do what you want. Again, it's just the minimum standard. And then a city can come in and say, we want whatever.
So you don't have a problem with no, like, in our cul-de-sacs, we have a certain measurement so that they can
Do a turnaround.
turn around, but with
So,
a flag lot,
Great question, thank you. No, that's another great question. That's been two super good mind joggers. So if it's over 150 feet,
okay,
they're supposed to have an approved turnaround. Now, this is something where in a cul-de-sac with multiple homes, we go by the code. This is where I cheat a little bit. When it's a single family dwelling, we I hate this when it's recorded, but I'm gonna tell you, we go a little more cowboy when it's a single family. And what I mean by that is say you're building a house. What I'll tell you is you make it to where I can turn a fire truck around and I'll approve it. Because it's your house, it's your lot. I don't want to make you do something crazy, but if you can do what works for you, and we can get an engine turned around, I'm gonna sign it off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, if it's multiple homes, then it goes back just to the code. But I really want a homeowner to have more say in his home and property. And so I try to work with him to do that, if that makes sense. And I've done that all over the Upper Valley, out west, just wherever. It usually works out. Most people will actually say, I'll make it work, and they do a decent job. So.
On that code, what is the turnaround, 60 feet, or what do you need to?
So it depends on the cul-de-sac, it's 96.
Okay.
Okay, so 48 diameter, 96, on a hammerhead, it is 20 feet. This is just technical code, not what if someone gave me 18, I'm gonna, and it works for them, I'd sign it off, like on a single family, but by code, it is 60 from center line. So imagine the road goes down and we do a hammerhead from the center line of this road going down to the end of the hammerhead. It's 60. So you're right on
On
that.
each side, correct?
Correct.
So you can pull in, back out, and turn around.
But again, I probably, if they came back and said I can get 52, I would probably sign them off. If it was a subdivision, it's gonna be closer to code.
yes, if we're creating this for flag lot, you can kind of steer them to that 60, you know what I mean? We have some minimums and
Well, and the coring was a good point too, because I could see somebody just wanting to lay the thinnest asphalt they could, like you would in a driveway down that road to save money. I don't think they realize the cost difference to actually put down a heavy duty road like that, there's gonna be a lot of cost in that. That makes sense, to get the trucks down there. With medical, Weaver County, do you guys run the engines with the medical on board, or it's all ambulances out here, right? I can't remember what they call that.
No, it's good. So you're gonna have a new station built here pretty quick. You're gonna have your own fire
Maybe,
station.
it's gotta pass, but.
Yeah, I think-
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. But I'm very optimistic.
We are too, that'll be nice.
I really would like to have a fire station. So it's gonna have an engine, all of our medical personnel. So there's 3 levels. There's EMT, there's advanced, and there's paramedic. Okay, so different level of education. All of ours have to be at least advanced.
Okay.
Now, on I call it a rescue truck, because that's what I was on, a medic truck. On the medic truck, there's paramedics. So occasionally you'll get a paramedic working on an engine,
Yeah.
but the medic truck has to be paramedics and the ambulance and the engine all under advanced teams.
Well, the direction for my question, I wasn't clear. No, that's okay. I apologize. I wasn't very clear on it. So I know Ogden City, they've gone to some of those trucks where they're lifting gurneys up into the fire truck.
Transport engines.
Yeah,
We
transport.
won't have those.
Okay, good, because that would be a concern for me too, because you gotta turn that mother around too.
Yeah,
So,
I worked on it. I
how's your
retired.
shoulders?
I retired in Ogden before I came to Weaver,
Yeah,
so.
okay, because that would have been my concern, but if they're loading people in ambulance, is that means they can turn around?
That would take the engine too far, because that engine has to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna take an engine away from the citizens.
707 gallons of gas.
Yeah, but we're not they make a lot of money on ambulance transports, but our focus is more on being here and customer service. We're not saying they're not, but we're not gonna take an engine that far away from you.
Pretty much answered all my questions.
No, there's some good points in there.
One thing.
Yeah.
From the city standpoint, this is probably a little out of your area of expertise, but you might have perspective on it. Is what if you go to respond to something and it's not maintained? You can't access it, the road's not maintained, because right, we can do all these things, but it's still.
No,
you're
you're
still
right.
under
There's
the
always-
thumb, Or has to.
I mean, it could still have, a foot of snow, but. I mean, the thing is what we do is we try to prepare it. Reasonably prudent and just be prepared, and we do code, but at the end of the day, there is some responsibility to the homeowner. And so, but that's true with anything.
And you have that in regular cities now, because the C roads, you classify them A, B, C, D, so your Cs and Ds are the last to get plowed. So they could pull into a cul-de-sac that hasn't been plowed yet by you know what I mean? So it'd be the same vein, I guess, as somebody that has a 150-foot lane that didn't get cleared.
If we make them go to the minimum code or even more. The thing about it is, as far as a liability standpoint, is maybe what you're thinking or asking is. We've done our part. The liabilities off of, and when I say us, I am part of the city. So when I'm here with you, I am your fire marshal, and so we're working together as a team, but it takes liability off the city and the fire department. So, and it puts the onus back on the homeowner. I think we could, if they have let's see if they have a hard surface and they haven't plowed it, we're probably gonna get down there. And so that's what really matters. It's when they have mud bogs and there's snow, but it's warm and it's, then it gets bad. So that's why we're trying to go to where we're having at least roll mill.
I have a question.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't know if this makes sense, but if I'm understanding it correctly,
Yes.
if you have 150-foot drive, you have to have an approved turnaround.
Correct. Yeah, yes, an approved turnaround, which would mean that we would go look at it and say, yes, this will work.
So when we have like an ADU, a big pole barn that's built and there's an ADU inside or something like that, and it's clear back there, do we require the same type of
Yes.
stringent things like
Yes.
the roadway has
Yes.
to be a certain grade, everything
Yes.
we do? Okay.
Really, the flag lot's no different than an ADU. Here's the one difference that they did in the state legislature, and you gotta understand, a lot of them are home builders, and this will come back, especially if Joel listens to it, right? But he can't say I'm wrong. I'm very honest, but what it is they do a lot of, state legislature to take some of the code away to make it more lucrative for home builders or whatever, and that's just the facts. And so they came out with, and I follow the state code very closely so that we're staying within the law. But it doesn't matter if I like it or not. I just have to enforce what code is, right? And so I try to do a good job of keeping it straight. But they did a thing where if you put an ADU back there, and as long as the hydrants were spaced properly in the subdivision, you can't require a hydrant to go down to the ADU. So that's one difference. In a flag lot, it's a new house that still needs to be within the distance of the hydrant.
And again, I got mixed up on that. Sorry, Amanda. It was 500, 600, 500.
Well,
Not right.
okay, chapter five, that just by the book, 5 says a flag lot can go to 600 feet.
Yeah.
But we adopt the appendices, and so we use the hydrant spacing in the appendices, which is really technically 500 feet. Everything I've done, if they're close, I will sign them off, because again, it's just trying to be reasonable with the homeowner. I'm not trying to nickel and dime citizens. It's expensive enough to do anything anymore. And so if they're close, if it's 550, I'm gonna sign it off.
So if it's an ADU and it's further away than that 500 or 600 feet,
Nothing I can do.
so what do you guys do?
Lay line and hope that there's not so much friction loss and loss that we can at least pump water.
But we could put that, we could make one stringent, or
I don't know if you can go against state code for that.
that just seems crazy to me, but
You're right, but I think when the state makes that, you can't, you can't go against it. Their rule, even if you did, their rule supersedes yours.
so I thought I guess it depends on the application, because in some ways you have to state, like you said, this is what's required by this, but if you guys want to add to that, you can in some instances,
Correct.
but not when it comes to ADUs.
Well, it's not so much that, it's just if there isn't a state code for something, you can be more restrictive than the fire code. But if the state code comes back, say the gallonage, so you can build, there's a lot of good examples. Another thing they did years ago, and a lot of fire marshals don't know this, and they get in trouble. And so again, I try to be really careful to know the state code. And technically a 7,000 square foot home, the fire flow for that's like 2,250 or 2,500. We looked at what we brought just in case. And but the state, long time ago, they went in and they said you can't require more than 2,000 gallons a minute for any size home. So even though the code says, so if Hooper said we require 2,500 gallons of water, you can't, because the state explicitly said 2,000 is the max you can require. Now, if they wouldn't have done that, then you could. Does that make sense?
This is probably,
And so you still have a lot of latitude. You just can't go to any sorts.
so maybe, I don't know, if homeowners insurance figures into that, if they require that you have to be within so many feet of a.
I know, well.
I might get a discount for being close for one.
I just
So
wonder,
if
like,
you're
what
with-
protection those
So,
people have.
no, that's another,
ADUs.
here's another key question, but it's 1,000 feet. So your ISO is a 3, and the lower the better. You were a 5 or a 6 back in the day, and we've got it down to a 3. I'm gonna push for a 2 next year, or not next year, the next time, for the lower valley. Upper valley is harder, but here's the deal. So Weaver is technically a 3x10 split. The X means if you're farther away than 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant, then you're an X. And so if the ADU is 1,100 feet away, it's a 3X. Does that make sense?
Not entirely, but
I know.
I'm trying to follow what you.
Yeah, so if you're within the 1,000 feet of, no, this is just the insurance.
Okay,
It has nothing to do with the IFC. It's just the insurance says that if you're within 1,000 feet, then you lose the X and you're just a 3. So if you're a 3, you pay less. If you're a 3X, you pay more. And if you're like up in Causey, so far away from station 62 and 5, you're just a 10. And there's nothing I can do except, we're not gonna build a fire station up in Causey. We're not, Hooper's not gonna pay for a station at Causey, no.
So if they built, if somebody were to put in just a pole barn or something, it doesn't have an ADU in it. Same,
It's called a U building and there wasn't, insurance would just.
but
yeah.
not insurance wise
Okay,
necessarily,
sorry.
but your requirements.
I
You
can't.
get a lot of oversized structures that.
I can't, because here's the thing, in the code, there are ag exemptions. You guys hear that sometimes, there's ag, but there's not exemptions yet in fire code. And so they build a 4,000 square foot pole barn. And I think technically the fire flow for that would be enough that they'd need 2 fire hydrants. Now, I probably would make them just bring in 1, just try to be reasonable, but I could say, yes, you need to bring in a hydrant. That's why every building that goes through a plan review through Hooper needs to go through me. Because I protect the city from liability. Because if you guys, and I'm not saying you do this, but say you have a structure and you don't give it to me, and then it's built and there's a problem, the liability will go to the city. Because in court, the first thing they're gonna say to you is, did you, yeah, the city approved it. What did the fire marshal say? Oh, we didn't send it to him. Okay, well then you're taking liability. We had a big meeting at the county one time. And I don't mind saying it because it was a positive outcome. Everybody there was great. It was just, they weren't sending some buildings to me. They built a house that was 8,000 square feet. No hydrant in sight, and they used it as almost like a lodge. And so I told them, I said, so is the county gonna put in the hydrants and retro the sprinkler system? Who's gonna pay for this? The attorneys were there, and it was a big meeting. And the boss of the county I mean, I'm kind of short-cutting, but he just looked at the people, the staff, and said, this will never happen again. And it hasn't. And so it's same thing, like even a pole barn, yeah, we'll review it. And there might not be any fees. It's like, we're not looking for just their money. It's just, we want to make sure that just what you're saying. If it's a big building, we're gonna make them do a hydrant.
I only
So,
asked- oh,
so
sorry, go ahead.
my question on this, because we don't, the stuff that comes to the planning commission, right? So he handles all the reviews on barns and all that. Do we have to write all this in the flag lot ordinance? Or is that,
Shouldn't have to, because everything's reviewed by me. And so
but it's just good information for us that we'd be able to give somebody that, hey, if we're talking about a flag lot, here's some of the things that
you need to
the
look at.
fire department's gonna discuss with you.
Yeah, of course you can do that. So we try to be super fair and consistent and transparent, like for real, not like they say at the federal level, we try to be real, so. Anyway,
So as they determine how close they want a hydrant, or, you know, like if they want to have a different, or, you know, more stringent, they want one closer, or if someone wanted to do fire sprinklers, you put that into perspective, how much does a hydrant cost? Roughly.
I think plugs are going for about 10,000 now. So say we're doing a home like Kilts. He has a hydrant and he's got sprinklers because his house is so big. So at 10,000 square feet, you can have 6 fire hydrants and you're still gonna sprinkle your house. But normally up to 10,000 square feet in a subdivision with hydrants, there is no sprinklers. Now,
Up to 10,000?
up to 10,000, over 10,000 use sprinkler, because the reason is, you get a home that big, you can't meet fire flow. There's just not enough water for a house that size, you know, pumping through a hydrant. So if you're up in the upper valley, there's no water, there's no hydrants anywhere to be found. If it's over 3,600 square feet, spring. And we use it so we don't use it as like a punishment. We use it as an alternate means and method so that someone can build their dream home. They want to live there. And so instead of saying, no, you can't because there's not hydrants, we say, offer us a solution. And they don't know, and then we hint that that's the solution, and then they say, yes, we want to sprinkler our house. And then we let them build. And so we're trying, we try to do it to be nice, not to, punish them.
I think that's what most of them houses had to do on 24-20 or 24-25. Like Mike Kigley and Stan Powers and all them, they had to sprinkler.
Here in the
So-
city,
You said you think a hydrant's about 10 grand or 10,000 square feet they have to sprinkle on? Okay, confused.
So the
No,
plug
I-
was 10,000.
yeah, all of the above. So, okay, so I sometimes get off because I nerd out on stuff and I want to tell you everything. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
So a hydrant, I think the last I heard was 10,000.
Yeah, and
The hot tub and install it on a water main. A sprinkler system for a home is probably 30. I know, it is expensive, but the only thing is though, and I'm not gonna get like on a soapbox or anything, but I do want you to think about this. The difference between smoke detectors and a sprinkler system in a home is smoke detectors may go off, they may wake you up and you might get out. You can be an old drunkard, whatever, and be passed out, and if there's a fire in your house, the sprinklers will put it out. You'll wake up wet. And things can dry, but they can't unburn. So there really is some good things about sprinklers. I mean, honestly, if everybody had seen what I've seen and knew what I knew, they probably build homes with the sprinklers just standard.
Yeah.
But it probably will never happen here because the home builders are in charge. But when you pull out little kids that have been burned and you're trying to revive them and they die, I'd pay 30,000 all day, right?
We can probably get a closer
So if
idea if we went to Wayne Hall and asked him, because that's all he done.
if a homeowner or the flag lot, financially it wouldn't make sense. I'm just thinking if there's any other scenarios, if they say, I want to just sprinkle it, I don't want a hydrant, does that resolve all your concerns? So we could let them.
Depends on how far away the hydrant is. So yes, they could do that. And here's why. If it was like an extraordinary amount of money, like an unreasonable and undue burden to bring the hydrant in, then I could say, what would you offer me? And if they say we'll sprinkle the home, then I'd let them do it. Because again, we don't ever want to tell somebody in my office that they can't build. We just want to give them options what to do so they can. So yes, that would be an option.
And then if they did have to extend a plug, this is probably a really dumb question, but
No, it's not.
I'm sure it's pretty up there. The same laws apply, they'd have the red curve, certain distances around that plug, right? So if we're talking, if they had to run something down by this turnaround, there's gonna be parts of that they're not gonna be able to park by or use, I mean.
Technically, it's, there is parking spacing and then there's just spacing.
Yeah.
But honestly, in the code, it's a 3-foot clear path. All the way around the hydrant, so it's really,
5? That was 5 feet.
well, you can do that as a city ordinance. Salt Lake has one, and then they had to back off. They did a really big one downtown,
Yeah.
and do you remember that? And then they had to back it off. Honestly, if they give us room to access it, I don't sweat it.
Okay.
I really don't. There's a lot of other things to worry about, because honestly, if you can access it, you're not hurting anything.
Yeah.
It's just people that park right in front of it. Make it really difficult. But it's actually a good question. So just another thing, just between us, painting the red curb doesn't mean anything.
No.
It doesn't. You actually have to put, like if we do no parking somewhere because it's too narrow, you have to put signage up.
Yeah.
That's what code is.
It's the same with handicap signage.
So the deputies can't cite anybody or, we can't cite anybody, the deputies can't cite anybody if it's just red curb, but if there's signage, we can. So really quickly, just as an FYI, for a fire access road, if you're 20 feet to 26 or 20 feet, you can't have parking on either side. When you're 26 feet wide, you can park on one side, no parking on the other side. And then when you get to 32 or wider, you can mark on both sides.
Hmm.
Just as an FYI. And whenever, if you guys ever want anything or any of the charts or anything, email me, I'll get in and find it and I'll snip it and send it to you. Yeah, of course, like whatever you guys want, so. And he has my address, so if you need it, email him and he'll forward it to me. Sorry, I mean, I know you do, so.
I think we're good. If anybody else have any questions?
Appreciate you giving us all the information.
I work for you guys, so,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks.
Are you good?
Never shut.
Okay. I talk too much sometimes, I'm sorry.
No, we had 30 minutes left. You can tell us more if you want.
You could turn out to be a nerd too. I might have played a little bit of sports, and look at me now, I'm really. So, you're not immune from it.
They appreciate it. But you
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
If I get one, I think about it as soon as I
Yeah,
forget.
you can take it. Good one.
Thank you.
Call or whatever, okay, and then again, if you need something, just email me, I'll get it.
Thank you.
So.
Okay.
all right.
Well, we're trying to consider, hey, think about what we want to see from on one side there. I think he brings up a good point about if it's called out in state code, you can't go beyond that. I think that's just a good point of reference in not only this discussion, but as other things comes down the pipe with what's being pushed from up there. It's good to know.
Well, where he was, when he was saying we don't have to write all this into the ordinance, I wonder if there's some of that we do want to include though, like road widths and. I mean, that's something we've got to take into account, right? If they're going by the side of another property. That road width or access is gonna be a pretty big point of conversation.
What if though? What if somebody wants to come in and build a flag lot, they already have a road easement that they've been using for years to go to the back 5 so they water. It's 20 feet wide,
Well, that's,
so they can use that and then for privately, because it's 20 feet.
yeah. But we also have to, are we gonna allow separate owners for that back flag lot? Or is it gotta be from the person at the front of the house that's developing that back piece? Does that make sense? Cause the easement wouldn't matter if I own front property, I can get to my back property.
Well, yeah, but I'm just talking how narrow with the flag lot, you know what I mean? Let's say it's a 20 or 30 foot lane that goes back there and then it opens up into a 5 acre.
Yeah.
I want to build back in that 5 acre. Well, I've got the 20 foot easement or driveway, as he put it.
Yeah.
I just gotta lay some road wheel down now to make it more robust. I'm trying to think.
No, they have two sides.
What was the, I know
They
that,
just wouldn't be able to park on it.
Yeah.
On either side, apparently. But that's not an us issue. We don't enforce traffic code. Parking.
I'm trying to think of this here because Ryan Fisher's was 100 and something feet, right?
Yeah.
Then it went back.
Property was 60.
Yeah, it was pretty wide, but is there anybody out there? Well, go down 6,300 even farther. Perkins, they have that. What's his, it's the Perkins property. Yeah, don't they have a pretty narrow driveway back to their house and it's probably 20 feet? I mean, their grandfather obviously, but there could be other instances in the city with that same kind of design that it's narrow and then blow that out.
How big is, you know, around, is he still?
Who?
It wasn't it Rousers that lived in that house back?
Oh, Misty,
Yeah. On 5,900.
she's still there. It's,
Oh, is she still there?
yeah, it's 35, 40 feet. It's pretty wide.
I guess listening to him or what, it seemed like he was pretty lenient toward the homeowners on single homes and more strict when it was multiple homes and it's based off of. I'm not saying we can't make it more strict than what his code is, but if it seems like that from a citizen's perspective, if the fire marshal's not requiring more than this, why do we want to hamper our citizens? Saying,
Yeah, you're trying to make it so that if somebody has a piece of property like that, they can use it. We're not handcuffing them to say, well, sorry, you bought that piece or you inherited that piece because you can't do anything with it.
yeah, and I guess I view this as not as a way like to skirt around any development subdivision type things, like I feel like if we lay those out pretty good requirements in the code where people aren't doing this to develop properties or things like that, that I think the things that he set out in there would be pretty, I mean, they're gonna be able to service those customers
Yeah.
based off those measurements, so I don't know why we would try to go require something more.
I think if we, I don't think that we should try to make it more stringent than what he requires. The examples that you gave us in our previous meeting, like West Point in their ordinance, it says, however, a turnaround reviewed and approved by the appropriate fire suppression agency shall be provided. So I think as long, if we decide that we want to move forward and have an ordinance for that, I think just including that wording that it needs to meet all of the fire code by the approving authority, you know. But I think,
Well, yeah, because that takes the onus off of us.
I think we still need to decide if that is the direction that we want to go in, like maybe look at some of these other ordinances that you gave us examples of and decide if we want to include some of that wording in there. Also, you know, we talked a little bit about whether we should do an actual ordinance to allow these or maybe make them something that we allow as a conditional use type thing. Do we get a lot of, when I talked to you, it sounded like we only had one person really that was really pushing for this. And I don't know if, I don't know, I shared the example with Malcolm the other day. My background's in mortgage and we had a loan that was closing, and right before closing, we called to find out something from the borrower and called their employer and they said they don't work here anymore. And so the loan fell through. And because of that, the entire company decided from now on, every loan that closes within 3 days of closing, they have to call and verify that they still work there, which was
After closing or before?
before closing, which was a pain sometimes because sometimes they do the verifications of employment through a corporate office. It takes time and you're delaying a closing and those are delicate. You have a time frame you have to work within. So my point is we overhauled the entire process because of one instance. And is that something that we feel like there's necessarily a need to do with this, or could it be something that could be done maybe as a conditional use, case by case, where we look at it and look, is this something that would be a benefit? I don't know, it's just an idea.
Or a variance.
Yeah.
We have a variance committee in our books
These
already.
variances are pretty
Yeah,
strict with
the
what they have,
variance
so.
is, tied to the land necessarily, and it's not something that a flag lot would be. Is that, you're still discussing flag lots? Yeah, so flag lot's not something that necessarily would allow, or a variance would allow for. Based on the circumstances of what is required, so you have to meet each and every element of a variance, it's not just one of them. And so, like a flag lot is something that could be considered self-imposed, but it's more the topography of the land is one thing that's considered, and setbacks can't consider any financial interest. But yeah, I'd say 95% of variances that are approved are legal.
So is there any other way to do this other than putting ordinance on the books that opens this up to somebody else saying, oh, well, I have 4 out of 5 of these, and then getting, you know, having that cause the city more.
So, I mean, you could do it a conditional use permit. Just have to ensure that, you know, every applicant is treated equally. Yeah. That way you kind of remove some of your discretion out of that. But then the ordinance, I mean, yeah, if you have your ordinance, it's more just an administrative review, like, is this what it is? And go through that process that way.
In your opinion, what would be the best for both the property owners out here and the city as far as safeguarding the city from getting into a mess down the road that?
So really, either or, and it's more, I mean, because there's a lot of cities that have allowed flag lots, which if there's not a lot going into it initially, it can create issues, and it sounds like, I mean, Malcolm's very on top of things and clearly already, I'm sorry I was late, but went through I'm guessing the fire marshal or the fire department's, requirements and things like that. The other thing is that you have, utilities, and that can increase that cost for different homeowners, developers, which, they can incur their costs, whatever. But then it can also increase the cost of on the city upgrading or maintaining your infrastructure because of, you allow these flag lots by ordinance, and then you might have a lot of people all of a sudden that now qualify for that. And if it's by ordinance and they meet all the boxes, then you can't say no. But it's all, I mean, conditional use permit.
Isn't that kind of the same with conditional use, like?
That was just, yep, you're gonna say, if you meet all those boxes as well, and you wanna say no just to say no, then that can get the city in trouble as well, so.
Well, they still have to meet zoning regulations, though, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't see flag lots creating an issue where all of a sudden we have all this density that everybody's worried about. If I'm
Well, I think
buying
if we get
acres.
today, now think 20 years from now, that's what we gotta think about.
Sure.
Most of the cities actually required like 150% of the zoning of the area, right? So generally they're larger than anything else. I don't
Which
know
that-
logic behind that, but it's common.
If we put something like that in place, I mean, I think that would cut down the only number of them that we get, which I don't know if that's our goal, but I'd really like to see or hear what Jared has to say, because my understanding was Public Works had some strong concerns at one point. And I don't know if those have been resolved, but I would lean pretty heavily on what he says, since he's gonna be the man on the ground that knows what they're gonna be dealing with as far as utilities and all that kind of stuff, so.
Yeah, we can get with Jared for sure. Get a meeting conversation put together.
So this really only applies to like 2 or 3, maybe 5 parcels of land right now, right?
So like a scope like that, but yeah, it'd be fairly limited. I would imagine more than that, but it wouldn't be super applicable to many, maybe like.
Is it something we can put on the books, have those people that want it done and take back off the books? Is that something that's?
I mean, the ordinances can change at any time. Anyone that's in that application process will now already be vested within that, and so they, regardless of where it's at, they have that opportunity to get it. So it is something that you could do that way. Seems a lot of work for the ordinance to go through and just for a few people.
So what is the goal? You said, you don't know if that's our goal. What is our goal?
I kind of think we treat it as case by case. I don't know if we need a full-fledged ordinance. You just get the 1 or 2 people that want to build, and here's my situation. So now they come in. Then we give them all this information that we've got, that we know of from the fire department. I mean, really, Public Works, I know Jared has his feelings on it, but if it's a 20-foot driveway, the city basically stops at the end of the road easement or the entrance, right? And if something fails,
It's
like
like
I'm 200 feet off the road, so if something fails, my electrical, Blake gets to take care of it because city has no skin in the game, you know what I mean?
I guess, Gene, my goal would be to maximize property ownership, let citizens do with their property within the bounds, but also protecting the city and the values that are already established. So
I'm just wondering if we put an ordinance out there for flag lots, if we'll have more that come in. And if we don't have an ordinance, and we treat them on a case by case basis, maybe we curtail the rush of.
I think my concern about using it as a conditional use instead of an ordinance, the rules are set in stone. But if we do it as a conditional use permit, you're setting precedent every time you look at one. And I think it'd be really hard to keep it even between every applicant. You know, that would be my concern, you know, and that's also my concern with creating an ordinance, letting people apply, and then rescinding the ordinance, like we either are gonna allow them or we're not. I don't think that's the right thing. I personally don't think it's the right thing to do hey, we got a couple people really interested in this, so we're gonna figure out a way to allow them and then shut it down. We're either gonna allow it or we're not.
I think my thing though is like, if we knew what parcels it applied to, and then said, hey, these parcels applies to, it, and then we just do the rest of the development in the city to not have.
My thoughts.
Yeah, to not have the parcels be in a position that they create flag lots.
We should have, I think, our
I think we
ordinances, the way that we have our subdivisions built now.
Yeah.
They have to have stubs,
Exactly.
they put things in place, so.
So that's what I'm
we're
saying,
gonna
is I
end
feel
up-
like moving forward will be good, but if we can isolate the ones that are existing now, then we can work out.
Well, I think statistically, if you look at it, like, I'm in, we're at 30 acres, right? There's no way we're ever gonna be able to do, nobody there's got on property that they can do a flag lot with, right? Half acre, probably the same thing. I think you start looking at it, if it's in an R1 and somebody's got well, they'd have to have at least 2 acres in an
Today,
R1.
well, 10 years from now.
Well, I know, but we
I know, but we
can't,
can't plan
we
like that.
can't
You look
plan
at, you look at like South Jordan, and all these cities, like, they were just like, where they had giant lots and people come in there and buy. It's just how, I think it's just how the development process happens. Like, you're gonna have people like Hooper. I don't think you're gonna be able to say we're not, eventually flag lots like are gonna be in Hooper. Like, one, just because of the big parcels of lands that we have and the way that we're zoning now, I think you're setting yourself up to have people come in and say, well, I want to do a flag lot.
well, and is there a way that we could, with that ordinance, it's a stop in time. If it's an existing parcel that has a flag lot, cause I see Sheldon's point too. If I buy 10 acres in 5 years and I build on 1 acre, and then all of a sudden I start putting flag lots behind it, is there a way that we can put a limit that says, look, going forward, you're not gonna be able to create these flag lots, but if it's an existing opportunity now, it's something we can look at.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends like, and how you do it, if you have the ordinance and you're doing it through ordinance. Yeah, and then if you remove the ordinance, it's just a legal non-conforming use.
I think if we, just going back
No.
to talking to Jared and seeing what his concerns are, and if those have been resolved, I would feel better having the whole picture before deciding one way or the other. And, you know, if those concerns that existed, 10 years ago when we didn't allow them, if those have been resolved, I still lean a little bit more towards the conditional use, because I feel like that gives us a little bit more leverage to look at it case by case and say, okay, is this affecting the safety, the health, the well-being surrounding area, where we still have that ability to approve it, but it's just kind of not and I think it would be good to know, like Sheldon said, how many potential properties in the city do we even have that this is gonna affect? Like, if we put something in that going forward, we're not going to approve these, you shouldn't be able to develop in a way that it would result in needing a flag lot down the road anyway, if they follow our current ordinances, I think.
I think a couple of the cities had restrictions like that in saying you can only have 1 or 2.
Parcel.
Yeah, per parcel of land, and kind of to defer, like, I don't view this as like, hey, I want to develop my subdivision, and I don't want to come in and get a full subdivision application, so I'm gonna go around it, and I'm just gonna throw a bunch of flag lots in there. Like, I guess I would want to see the ordinance written in a way that deters people from doing that, but if there is a piece of property that is landlocked, like you have one right here, down here on 4600, you have 5 acres right off of 4600 that can't be built on. That those people that own that property are just sitting on, and they can't do nothing with. I don't like. I don't think that's right either. I guess that would be that's my goal, and not to say, hey, let's open this up to as a development strategy for developers, but for individual property owners that don't have the frontage but have acreage behind them.
The one thing I like, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jimmy.
Does the city coordinate with the fire department and who decide, how does that go in order? Does the city approve first before you go to the fire department? Can you do them both at the same time? Does anybody know? Because the fire marshal to me said, he treats it a case by case. We put in there, you gotta have 20 feet. He says, if they're 18, I let it slide to it's a single lot. What if he said, yes, okay, and we say no? What happens?
So you're not bound by the fire department, whatever they do, but you can set your own standards, you can even set 30 feet or whatever, but, I mean, Malcolm would probably better speak to that on the, I guess it depends on.
But fire department says 18, and we say 20 or 30, I mean, that's gonna create a conflict.
Nate Tolman handles that process, but it's done simultaneously in some regards through a city inspect platform, but fire probably occurs fairly early in Nate's process, just to,
Nate handles it, or are you sure?
Yeah.
When I did it, when I built it in West Haven, you took it to the county yourself as a developer, the owner didn't go through the city. But it does here.
my understanding, but we can double check. We can loop Nate and we could have Nate come in, because we had Jared work on it. He'll have a lot of the utility consideration, but Nate could answer some questions. I'm sure Nate would be happy to help out.
I think this is a good first step. I agree with Amanda. It's good to get like the whole perspective picture before we're like deciding on.
Well, this kind of answers Gene's question, and then I just pulled up West Havens for giggles. And their very first line in here addresses kind of what we're discussing here. So the very first part, lots not having frontage on a street is required by the subchapter, but having access to such a street by means of right of way or fee title, except access strips may be approved as special exceptions by the planning commission in any zone, provided that in the very first letter, the planning commission determines that it is not feasible or desirable to extend the street to such plots at that time. No, that didn't answer what I wanted it to, but this does cover your width. They put minimum of 20, maximum of 30 with a 15% grade, which is pretty hefty. For not in a flat land like West Haven, I'm not sure where you're getting a 15% grade, but
I've been talking about the crown.
I would assume so. I would hope so.
But I think if we still just put in there, maybe subject to whatever the fire district requires, then that would alleviate us having different.
Well, because that's in here
standards than
too.
what They have. And it would still safeguard us. And one thing I like too is these are the types of situations, it's kind of like when we talked about the curb and gutter escrow. When you have somebody that's just building one home on family land. I feel like we need to be a little bit more flexible than what we are with these big subdivisions that come in. Those are the kind of people we want to encourage. Usually they have roots here, their family lives here, they grew up here. And I think if we could make it a little bit more doable for them to build a home, that we should try and do that, as long as we're safeguarding the city so that we don't get into a situation down the road that could cause issues.
But does that cross the line of picking and choosing?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I'm not saying we're required to be a fully family land, but I'm saying usually if someone's gonna have somebody build on their property and it's just one lot, a flag lot, they're probably gonna have somebody living there that is gonna be an asset to the community. I don't think somebody wants somebody moving in right next door.
I don't believe someone's gonna go look for a flag lot to build a house on. It's expensive. Usually you give it to your kid or your grandkid or something. It's not like, I'm gonna go look at this because
It's a great
it's a huge expense. You're not doing it to save money. It's gonna be more money.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless you get the ground for free, right?
Are you talking like just cost of little utilities and stuff? Is that-
everything.
All
Yeah,
of
that $10,000 fire plug
And to pay or put it, he's saying crushed asphalt, which is that an ordinance, or it sounded to me like he was saying that, we were saying it had to be a 75K test, the Hooper's saying that, so what if you get that with dirt, can you say? no?
But it had to be maintainable, right? Or what was it, scrapable or whatever.
maintainable surface is what he called it.
Yeah, and maybe there's like some more detailed parameters of what that means, but.
I don't think we're gonna have somebody come in and look them up, I'm gonna buy 10 flag lots here and develop these houses in Hooper. I don't think that's happening.
Well, and the reason they brought up ADUs is I wanna make sure we're being consistent because, you know, if we allow ADUs to go back there, this is really a very similar type of living situation where I just wanted to make sure we're not being more stringent on these because they're a flag lot than we are in an ADU. And it sounds like the parameters are kind of the same.
But with the flag lot though, you have to go get retitled, right? It creates an
It's a
entirely
new-
separate.
It's
Yeah.
subdivided.
So where the ADU gets
I
sold
mean,
with the
to,
property
like,
one
fire
owner.
wise, like,
Yeah, oh, no, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
just in that, maybe we should have clarified that, but yeah, just like as far as, you know, the emergency services. Are we more hard on flag lots than we are on ADUs, when technically that ADU could be further than 150 feet? So maybe we can meet with Jared or?
Yeah.
That,
Well, I'd get him and Nate in here both. See if we can capture them both, and then we don't have to have another meeting.
Yeah, we can do that.
Anything else moving forward? Could I get a volunteer for the pledge?